Okay, so back in our capture point, we're going to be at the update team progress function, is game scoring. So let's call that function that we just made. Determine scoring team. So what we can do, you can either drag off of here and call break, or you can just split the struct pin right here. And I'll give you the scoring team and what their score is, their number of players, which is determines what their score count per tick is. Off of here, we could either do a bunch of checks, or we could just do what's called a switch. So I'm trying to show kind of a variety of options of ways to do things here. So we can do a switch, and we really only care if team 1 and team 2 are doing something. And so if team 1 or team 2 has a scoring player count, we want to know about that. So let's drag off it there. Okay, and what we're going to try to do next here is calculate how much that score is. So we're going to have an amount of progress per player. Okay, so you have like 2 players, the progress count is 5, and we're going to make it a progress amount, so that way you can change that, so you can determine, more players equals more points or less points. So that's why we're going to make this a variable. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's call it progress granted per player. Make it a float. We're stuck in arrays. Let's get out of the arrays. There we go. Okay. So it's going to act as a multiplier. Okay. So all we need to do, type in multiply or hit the star node. Okay. And so when you get into this condition where it's an int and it's a float, you can just right click over here to float. We can just do single precision. And now it returns a float. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to need to have another container that's going to hold the team and the progress. So we have the team and the count struct that we made. Now we need to have something that's a member variable that it always stores the team that is capturing the point and their current progress. So let's go ahead and make that. So we'll go ahead, click over here, go into blueprint, struct, and we'll call it team progress struct. Okay, so once again, we're going to need another team enum. Call it team. And then we're going to add its progress. We're going to spell it right. Okay, go back to the capture point. All right, let's add team progress. Let's see, what do we want to call this thing? Just call it team progress. That's simple enough. Okay, and that's going to use our team progress struct. Okay. Now we, before we move any further, let's set up this this variable correctly. We want to make it replicated, but we want to make it rep notify, so it calls a function. Let's go into that function. And as you guessed it, we want people to be able to subscribe to it so that they can monitor it. So we're going to add another dispatcher. This time it's going to be not to our player, but to the point itself. So let's just call this on team progress changed. All right. I'm going to call it, and I want to pass through the value just like we did with player health. So select it. I don't see anything for whatever reason. I have to click it down here. It's already got my team count, but we want team progress. The difference being we have a float instead of an integer on that second position. Compile that. Team progress changed. Oops. We want the variable. Pass it through there. By the way, these two little balls there, they mean that the thing is replicated. I want to label that. So let's call it in team progress. Cool. All right, cannot find pin. Let's see what's wrong here. Let's try refreshing it. Okay, it's cool with that. All right, now it's fine. So there are a few bugs with the event dispatchers. One of them is what you just saw. It's just weirdness. You have to refresh, compile. The other thing would be if you try to pass an array through, it doesn't like it. It throws a little warning. So keep that in mind if you're trying to throw an array through. I think this is something that's a reoccurring bug that seems to come back. It does not happen in C++ code. So it's not a problem there, but for whatever reason, it's a problem here. So we're just going to have, you just have to know that those are potential issues with dispatchers, but they're critical and we have to use them. Okay, so we have our multiplier set up, and we're going to grab that team progress node that we just made, and we're going to split it. Now, this value right here is a replicated variable that that's going to be saved every tick that it's going to be updated. It's going to be really the thing that you are seeing as the point is being captured. This is the critical data that you're looking at. So its progress, if the team in power of that point or has the dominant team of that point, it's either going to have its score added to or taken away. Added to if there's more capture progress being made, or taken away if another player is currently capturing it, but they're not yet the dominant character. So how do we handle that? So we're going to handle the subtraction version first. So we're going to subtract the player count from here, just like that. Simple as that. Now, the other condition is we're going to be adding it. So we'll just take adding to the progress. So we take this, add the plus, we plug it in here. Oh, yeah. And we don't need to be so messy, do we? We make that even better. A little bit. Straighten it out. Looks all right. I can deal with that. Now, the deciding factor here is going to be whether the team matches the scoring team or not. So since this is saved data, it's going to have the team that's dominant as far as the most progress. This function returns who has the most players. So right here is going to determine whether we're adding or taking away. So let's pull off of here, and we're going to say equals, double equal. I think you're going to have to use equal enum here. Okay, and if these things are equal, then we're going to handle we're going to handle these two things. So a good way to handle two things like that would be a select node. So the draw off, select, and you could be specific as to float or whatever, but we're not. So we got the false condition here. We got the true condition. So let's work that through in our heads. If the team is not equal, it's false. That means that it's not the team with the most progress, but it has the most players on the point. So we need to start subtracting from the progress that's already there. If the teams do equal, it's good news. The team that has the most progress is also the team capturing. So we're going to add to the current progress. That makes sense? I sometimes have to bounce stuff in my head like that for a while before it clicks, but don't feel bad. I still do it for this all the time. So now we're going to do something unique if the progress is less than 0. So we're gonna talk about that in a second. So let me put the note in here before I get off onto a conversation with myself. Put that in there like that. Okay. So you got to imagine if there was progress there, and let's say another team's progress and a new team has stepped up, right? And they're trying to take progress. So that means the subtracting. Eventually, they're going to subtract to the point to where there's nothing there. And that value is going to go less than 0. And when it does go less than 0, we're going to need to subtract. We're going to have to stop subtracting. But the only way to do that is to make sure that our previous check over here will succeed, and so then we can add value. And the only way to do that is going to be to change the team that's in power. So basically, when it's less than 0, the team taking over needs to change. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to get our team progress. We're going to set it. Remember, this is the saved value, the value that will be around on the next tick. So if we're less than 0, that means somebody else is taking over. Well, how do you determine who's taking over? Well, it's the team with the most players. Okay? Because they have the most players on the spot. We've determined that progress is now negative, which means we've taken away all of the score from the previous team. And when we take over a new point, we set the value back to 0 because obviously we don't want to be negative. Let's call off of here. Let's bring our branch node over here to handle the other condition where the team in power, the team controlling the point, is simply adding more to their score. So what we want to do is we want to add what's called a clamp. And this is going to make sure that we don't go over a value as we're capturing, because you could get 100 and whatever, 100 more than you should. We'll just go over here. Now, we could type in 100 or whatever, but you may want to change what that value is. So the max value is going to be a variable that we decide. So we're going to just promote that to a variable and call it max progress. Now, I do this all of the time. I forget after I set these things or after I create them to set them to something. So let's just go in there and say max progress is 100. Okay, so let's connect that up there. That will be, so basically what just happened is that's our added progress clamped between a value. So our value comes in here of 0 and max, okay? And so what team is it? That's easy enough. We just get the team that is in power, which is the saved value, the saved replicated value. And we're going to, let's see, break. And we can imagine you had 100 of these things in the struct. So we're just going to connect up the team because that's all we want. We don't want the old progress. We want to hide unconnected pins. And so that way we just have a nice little thing, struct here showing the team going in there with our new score, not our old score, being set in the notify. Really important here is to ensure you have an authority check anytime you're setting a notify. If you didn't do this and you changed the value already on your client, you get some weird behavior where the onRep function sometimes doesn't get called. And you may have additional functionality in your onRep other than just setting a value or doing a dispatcher, and then you don't get those updates. So make sure you only set notifies on the server.